and welcome. President Muhammadu Buhari hosts African Development Bank boss Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, talks about food security, also applauds the AFDB on the $1.5 billion Africa Emergency Food Plan. It's a case of the hunter now being hunted as court authorizes the Senate to investigate chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal over alleged assault. A bitter experience for Senator Andy Uba as the Supreme Court nullifies his participation in the last Anambra governorship election.
And in international news from London, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres calls for a ceasefire in Ukraine after meeting Russia's President Vladimir Putin.
On business news tonight, Nigeria seals $300 million foreign direct investment deal with the UK government following the outcome of the 7th Economic and Development Forum between both countries. And from Abuja, Nigeria's non-oil exports gain traction, with Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo commending the growing resilience of the sector as he addresses the first national conference on non-oil exports in Abuja.
President Muhammadu Buhari had a busy day today as he received the President of the Africa Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, and governors of Cross River, Kebbi and Sokoto states at the presidential villa. His talks with the AFDB president centered on food security for Nigeria. The president applauded the $1.5 billion African Emergency Food Plan developed by the AFDB, which is awaiting ratification by its board to forestall a food crisis in Africa owing to the Russia-Ukraine war. The AFDB had predicted that Africa will lose $1.1 billion worth of food as a result of the crisis arising from fertilizer scarcity. Our correspondent Gloria Umezuke reports.
The president of the Africa Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, makes his first visits to the President Muhammadu Buhari this year. Against the backdrop of the Russia-Ukraine war, food security in Africa has sparked concerns. In a statement released by the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, the president applauded efforts by the bank to forestall a major food crisis in Africa through a $1.5 billion Africa Emergency Food Plan developed by the bank. According to the president, we are very much aware of the need for food security and to encourage our local farmers. That was why we closed our borders for about 2 years to curb smuggling. We made some progress, unquote. The AFDB boss also apprised the president of the bank's prediction that Africa will lose $11 billion worth of food owing to a fertilizer crisis expected to diminish food production by about 20%. The president also had other visitors. Atiku Bagudu of Kebbi State, who visited, albeit privately, Aminu Tambuwal of Sokoto State, a current presidential candidate of the PDP, and Ben Ayade of Cross River State, who happens to be the only governor of APC in the South-South. In a chat with State House correspondents, Governor Ayade reveals his presidential aspiration.
The truth is that my approach to the president is different. I will support the president's candidate. Even though I'm on standby, if I'm available, if it's my choice, I will support the president's candidate. And the president says, you are not outside of my view. Go, I give you blessing, go and consult. Ensure that you engage with key people while I watch. So I think it's a clear indication that I have the right to go and try it, to go and declare. So I will.
In a question and answer session on contesting potentially with the former president Goodluck Jonathan if he joins the APC and becomes the party's flag bearer, Governor Ayade says he has respect for the former president and that if it is the decision of the APC to field him as its candidate, he would support him. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
To some legal issues, the Federal High Court in Abuja today held that the Senate has powers to investigate the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, Danladi Umar, over an alleged act of assault on a security guard at a shopping mall in Abuja on March the 29th, 2021. Delivering judgments, Justice Iang Ekwo ruled that the CCT boss has failed to display high moral public standards by his conduct, and with the Code of Conduct Bureau being a product of an act ratified by the National Assembly, it therefore has powers to investigate his conduct.
There are few lawyers and members of the public before Justice Iang Ekwo in this courtroom in the Federal High Court. They are here for the judgment in the suit by the chairman Code of Conduct Tribunal, Mr. Danladi Umar, seeking to stop his investigation by the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions for allegedly assaulting a security guard at Banex Plaza, Abuja on March 29 last year. In his judgment, Justice Iang Ekwo holds that the case of the CCT chairman lacks merit and there is no cogent reason to stop the Senate from undertaking its constitutional functions. The court adds that as a public officer administering law relating to conduct for public officers, Mr. Umar has no reason to institute a suit to stop the Senate from investigating a public petition seeking justice on moral grounds. Justice Ekwo further says that the Code of Conduct Bureau and Code of Conduct Tribunal Act 2010 are established by the Act of the National Assembly, and Mr. Umar is subject to investigation by the National Assembly. He maintains that Section 2 of the Code of Conduct Bureau exposes Mr. Umar to investigation by the National Assembly than any other Nigerian, and it will be illogical for him to try and stop the Senate probe, as doing so will pass an impression that is above the law. While dismissing the suit, the court holds that declaratory relief sought by Mr. Umar for injunction against the Senate cannot be granted because it lacks merit.
The Federal High Court doesn't have final say in this matter. The concern is clear. The plaintiff has a right of appeal, which we are going to exercise. Okay, and we have asked the court to please avail us as quickly as possible, if possible within 48 hours, a certified true copy of the judgment so that we can exercise our right of appeal.
The chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal had tried controversial cases in the past, namely the alleged operation of foreign accounts while in office by former governor of Lagos State and now national leader of the All Progressives Congress, Ahmed Tinubu, and false asset declaration allegedly by former Senate President Bukola Saraki and a past Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onohen.
And staying with legal matters, Senator Andy Opal seems to be unlucky with the courts, as the Supreme Court today nullified his participation in the last governorship election in Anambra State as a candidate of the All Progressives Congress. In 2007, the same Supreme Court removed him as governor after 17 days in office. In today's judgment, a 5-member panel of the Apex Court held that the APC breached its guidelines for the conduct of its primary and therefore failed to conduct a valid primary for which Mr. Oba emerged as the party's candidate in the Anambra governorship election. And to politics proper, where the contest for the All Progressives Congress presidential ticket appears to be the most sought after, going by the growing number of aspirants jostling for the top job. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is among the list of over 10 aspirants showing interest in taking over from President Muhammadu Buhari. He held a meeting with critical stakeholders in Ogun State as part of his ongoing advocacy engagements towards the realization of his presidential ambition in 2023.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, in company of the Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun, arrived to a warm reception from party supporters, traditional rulers and members of the Remo Traditional Council at the Palace of Akaribo of Remo Land. We also welcome the Governor of Ogun State. After the exchange of pleasantries, Professor Osinbajo leaves no one in doubt of his determination to succeed President Muhammadu Buhari come 2023.
I know that governing at the highest levels in our country requires some experience. It requires some training. And after a period of 7 years, 7.5 years now, of working as Vice President of Nigeria, seeing what many people have never seen, it is now evident that if there is anybody, any candidate or aspirant who on day one can hit the ground running, who on day one knows what to do, who will not spend another 2 years trying to decide what to do, that person is your son, Oluyemi Osinbajo. That is that person.
Governor Dapo Abiodun, who led members of the State Executive Council to the event, says Professor Shibajo's pedigree as a serving vice president makes him the most qualified person for the presidency.
If becoming president is by qualification, you've earned it. You are in office today as the vice president of Nigeria. You've been in office for 7 years. You served your boss meritoriously. With your boss seen it, you've been very loyal in office. You have matured in this office. You've demonstrated capacity and capability. If the presidency is by way of an award, Your Excellency, we will just gather here today and we award it to you.
The paramount ruler of Remo land, Obaba Batunde Ajayi, also gives his royal blessing as he prays for the success of his aspiration.
Mr. Vice President, because, like I said, that your days will be long, that you will continue to shine, and the good Lord will continue to smile upon you, and that at the end of the glory of this day, you will see that there is indeed light at the end of the tunnel.
After his outing in Remo, Professor Shibajo moved to the Presidential Lodge in Abeokuta, where he held a closed-door meeting with party officials and delegates ahead of next month's All Progressives Congress presidential primary.
And another presidential aspirant of the All Progressives Congress for the 2023 elections, Rotimi Amechi, also met with some party delegates in Oyo and Ogun states. The consultation was about actualizing his intention to become Nigeria's president in 2023.
The Oyo State chapter of the All Progressives Congress, APC, played host to the presidential aspirant at the state party secretariat in Ibadan. Here, he appeals to the leaders and delegates to vote for him, promising not to let them down if he becomes the country's #1 citizen.
I will work for you the way I work in my house. I will work for you the way I work in River State. I will make the difference.
Late into the night, the trip continues to neighboring Ogun State via rail. They are welcomed into the presidential lodge in Ogun State by the governor, Dapo Abiodun, members of the government, as well as top politicians. Addressing the gathering, Mr. Amechi notes that he is the most qualified to become Nigeria's next leader.
If you put me in power, I will deliver. An example is the railway. People use the railway. People see me here. Minister sits in the office, telephone call, and MD knows what's happening in the railway. No, I come here. I drag your governors.
Governor Abiodun describes Mr. Amechi as a reliable and respectable politician, wishing him success in his current political aspiration.
Honorable Minister, all I can do as your friend and the governor of this state is to pray for you and wish you well. I pray that the Almighty God that has placed it on your heart and placed this desire in your heart will grant you the strength, the courage, the energy to see this through.
Mr. Amechi was also at the palace of the Alake of Egbaland, His Royal Majesty Adedotun Gbadebo, to pay homage. He was also hosted by a former governor of the state, Benga Daniel.
In part 2, after the break, the Independent National Electoral Commission dismisses claims that it resumed the voter registration exercise in the Itu-Boma local government area of Imo State. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. President Muhammadu Buhari hosts African Development Bank boss Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, talks about food security, also applauds AFDB on the $1.5 billion Africa Emergency Food Plan. It's a case of hunter now being hunted as the court authorizes the Senate to investigate chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal over alleged assault. A bitter experience for Senator Andioba as the Supreme Court nullifies his participation in the last Anambra governorship election. And U.S. Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls for a ceasefire in Ukraine after talks with Russia's Vladimir Putin in Moscow. We take another look at politics, and for the People's Democratic Party, the ticket for the party is equally competitive as a number of aspirants have shown interest in picking it up. One of them, former Senate President Bukola Saraki, is continuing his consultations as he visits Plateau State, where he criticized the federal government's attitude in tackling the security situation in the country. Dr. Saraki says lack of accountability is responsible for the continuous security breaches.
Nigeria today, unfortunately, we do not have the luxury of just sending anybody to the villa. The security situation in the country, unfortunately, so you in Plateau have felt the brunt of it. Lost close relatives, close friends, properties. That cannot continue. And by God's grace, will not continue. Who is going to help us address our security situation? Who better than one of us? Who better than somebody from here that will stand? The problem of insecurity in Nigeria is because there has not been accountability. People have done things and nobody is held accountable. I was Senate President for 4 years. We sat down with the security agency and we wrote a roadmap to address the issue of security. But today, that report is still there. Maybe God wanted that report. It's one of us that will go back and implement that report.
The chief whip of the Senate, Senator Ojo Zokalo, has hinted that he may withdraw from the 2023 presidential race if political parties don't zone their tickets to the southeast. The former Abia State governor had indicated he'll run for the presidency in 2023, but in a statement today, he says he's shocked by the number of presidential aspirants from the southwest and the south-south that are joining the race. In his words, it's hypocritical not to support the Southeast for the 2023 presidency. July the 16th has been designated by the Independent National Electoral Commission as the date for the governorship election in Osun State. Now, with the set date, aspirants are gearing up to contest for the #1 seat. For the Accord Party's candidate, Dr. Akin Ogunbiyi, it's imperative to set the ball rolling.
With the governorship election in Osun State gradually drawing close, candidates are beginning to seek ways to impress the electorate towards gaining their support. This large crowd assembled in Osogbo, the Osun State capital, to welcome the governorship candidate of the Accord Party. In attendance are members from the state and national levels who render their goodwill and support messages.
Accord Party is a lucky party. We're #1 on the ballot paper.
By this time, July, the governor of this state would have been announced to be a governor from Accord Party.
With the goodwill messages done with, the national chairman is called to present the governorship candidate with the flag of the party.
The day has come. This is the real change. We all know what is happening, and we all know what we need to do to change what is happening presently. So this is the new change and the true change.
The candidate, Dr. Akin Ogunbiyi, alongside his running mate, Kunle Jimoh, now mount the podium to speak with the electorate and gain their trust ahead of the July 16th governorship election in Osun State.
Progress is determined by things getting better every day. I want to engage and work with dedicated and well-meaning citizens of Osun State to faithfully deliver improvement in people's lives. We must join hands and run together to create beneficial impact, achieve excellent goals, and hone in laudable objectives.
As the race heats up, with the Accord Party governorship candidate confident he has what it takes to win the election, at the end of the day, the final say on who becomes the next governor lies with the residents of Osun State.
In the meantime, the Independent National Electoral Commission has refuted reports that it's resumed the continuous voter registration in places where the exercise were earlier suspended in parts of Imo State over security concerns. The Commission says the exercise is still confined to its state and local government area offices, except in Osu, Njaba and Hitu-Boma local government areas, where it's been suspended indefinitely, insisting that the position of the Commission has not changed. A statement by the Chairman, Information and Voter Education, Festus Okoye, notes that the Commission will announce any new decision on the matter after consultations with the security agencies and critical stakeholders. INEC has suspended voter registration in parts of Imo State after gunmen attacked and killed its staff in Ihitu-Boma local government area, and the decision affected 54 additional centers created to facilitate the registration of voters across the state. Representatives of a coalition of civil society organizations are seeking for better representation of women and youths in the forthcoming general elections. At an inter-party dialogue in Abuja, they condemned the poor representation of women and youths in politics, maintaining that they constitute a large chunk of the voting population but are deprived of their basic rights.
Members of civil society organizations, representatives of political parties, youth and women groups are leaving no stone unturned in their bid to ensure more inclusiveness of women and the youth ahead of the 2023 general elections. This forum brings together experts who are challenging the current status quo, which they say creates setbacks for the active participation of groups identified as marginalized because of stringent conditions by political parties.
If you really want to appreciate that women have been there as voters, women have been there along the line, this is the time to change the tide. And we hope that, with the women who are coming out, because what we used to have is women are not coming out. Those who have come out, have you given them the chance? They are even introducing free, we are told some of the parties introducing free collection of funds by women. How free is free?
Reducing the cost of your nomination forms is not enough. In fact, you're just scratching the surface, because we all know that the party nomination forms is nothing compared to the campaign funding and the campaign expenses that candidates would have to make. So I'd like to urge you, please reduce the cost of your nomination forms.
A breakdown of women's representation in the parliament since the return to democracy in 1999 to date shows an abysmal performance from 2.4% between 1999 to 2003, a rise to 4% between 2003 to 2007, and then plummeting to 3.6% between 2019 to 2023.
In 1999 to 2003, 97.6% of members of the State Houses of Assembly were men, and to see that in 2019 to 2023, this figure is still 95.5%.
With the message clear, representatives of political parties appear ready to change the narrative, beginning with the 2023 general elections.
We need you women to take the mantle of this government. We have to work assiduously to actualize our dreams.
The call for better representation of women and youth in the political space has been a long-running advocacy. Encouraging the participation of these critical groups in both elective and appointed positions is one area political parties should take seriously going into the 2023 general elections.
Let's cross over to Abuja now, and here's Gloria Umezuke. Gloria?
Hello, Ijoma. Good to see you. Well, in Abuja, we begin with the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, commending the growing resilience of Nigeria's non-oil export sector, hopeful that the many interventions from the Buhari administration into the sector will yield better results in the coming years. He said this while delivering the keynote address at the first installment of the National Conference on Non-Oil Export, hosted by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council in Abuja. The two-day event is billed to discuss issues disrupting the sector, effective trade facilitation, financing the value chain of the sector, and creating sustainable market access for Nigerian non-oil exports. Our State House correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports.
The plan for Nigeria to be zero reliant on oil is gradually taking shape. And this national conference on non-oil exports seeks to bring on board all players in the sector to consolidate strategies which ensure this vision is achieved. The executive director of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Dr. Ezra Yankusak, highlights Nigeria's non-oil export performance in recent years.
From the Pre-Shipment Inspection Agency report, it reveals that a significant growth in export process in the last 5 years, that is 2017 to 2021, from $1.2 billion to $3.4 billion as against an annual average of $22 billion food importation alone into the country. To close this gap, concerted efforts are required from all practitioners in the non-oil export value chain.
According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the total agriculture exports from Nigeria hit 289 billion naira in March of 2020. Total imports stood at 8.1 billion naira in the third quarter of 2021, 17.3% higher than the second quarter of 2021 and 51.4% higher than the third quarter of 2020. Between January and September of 2021, the country's total foreign trade stood at 35.09 trillion naira, with imports pegging at 22 trillion naira and exports at 13.1 trillion naira. For the Vice President, this conference is timely, and while he commends the resilience of the sector, he speaks to regulators and is hopeful for better results.
We must seek to achieve a situation where regulators see themselves as facilitators of business as opposed to policemen or those who may just provide some obstacles. The very best approach is for regulators to see themselves as those that must promote business and that their success will be measured against the success of business.
The Vice President is hopeful that with more interventions, that this particular sector will even deliver more to the Nigerian people, as the Buhari administration promised when it came into power. However, so much more needs to be done, and the next few days, this conference will be inundated with conversations about the standards of Nigeria's exports and the regulatory constraints faced by a lot of the exporters. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
The Executive Secretary of Nigeria's National Health Insurance Scheme, Professor Mohammed Sambo, says the organization has delisted 10 health management organizations for failing to deliver proper health insurance services to clients. While speaking at a news conference in Abuja, Professor Sambo warns that several other health management organizations may also be delisted if they are found wanting during the next accreditation by the regulator. He notes that the recent move is part of deliberate efforts to clean up the mess in the system, which has made it almost impossible to have effective health insurance coverage.
Whether we have been able to penalize any REHMOs when we say that we have put in mechanism for addressing operational lapses, it is on record that 1 year after my assumption of office, I delisted 10 HMOs who have not been able to fulfill the mandates as enshrined in the guideline of the National Health Insurance Scheme. Those HMOs have gone to heaven and earth to ensure that this punitive measures is reversed, but we stood our ground very firmly. It is a long-term decay. We cannot see the result in a year or two, but I can assure you we are doing all that it is necessary to address these problems. And when we undertake our accreditation exercise, it is usually every 2 years. Any HMO that we also find not to be meeting the obligation will be delisted, and nobody can really ask us to revise, because we have a clear mandate to go and restore confidence in the delivery of the National Health Insurance Scheme.
We're still ahead on the news at 10. Nigeria seals $300 million foreign direct investment deal with the UK government following the outcome of the Economic Development Forum between both countries. Plus, other news from Abuja. Do join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Channels Television. The Department of State Services, DSS, says it has uncovered plots by some groups to attack worship centers, some critical government infrastructure, markets and relaxation centers, among others. A statement by the spokesperson of the service, Peter Afunaya, says the criminal elements intend to join forces to recreate the bombings that rocked many parts of the country before 2015. The DSS adds that the objective is to achieve some self-serving interests as well as cause fear among the citizenry, saying it will continue to partner with other security agencies to ensure that necessary drills are enforced. The bodies of victims of last Friday's deadly fire explosion at the site of the illegal fat refinery in Abaze community in Ohaji, Egbama local government area of Imo State, have been buried. During the mass burial, which held at the site of the explosion, the Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma, who was represented by the local government's chairman, Marcelinus Amadioha, says it is an unfortunate incident and the government and all leaders will ensure there's no reoccurrence. But that's it from the nation's capital. It's back to you, Ijoma.
Thanks a lot, Gloria. 2 ultra-modern bus terminals have been inaugurated in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, as part of efforts by the government to transform the transport sector for better access, security and efficiency. The Oyo State Governor, Seyi Makinde, accompanied by his Edo State counterpart, Godwin Obaseki, flagged off the project in Ojo in the challenge area of Ibadan.
Born out of the need to revolutionize the face of the transport system in Oyo State, the government began the Ojo and Challenge bus terminals about 2 years ago. Despite challenges of COVID-19 pandemic and the attendant economic downturn, 2 out of the 4 bus terminals are now ready for use.
We were faced with very difficult challenges, especially COVID-19. That threw most project duration, threw them out of the window. But at least out of 4, 2 are being commissioned today.
Just before inaugurating the terminals, Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki noted that the project is apt and it aligns with Oyo State being a traffic hub.
When we have people like you in government, people who make decisions not on emotions, but on data, on the facts, people who make decisions that affect majority of the masses of the people, not just a few of us who are elites. As long as we have people like those, people like you who have those qualities, Nigeria has hope.
The 4 bus terminals are estimated to cost over 15 billion naira and expected to become a catalyst for economic progress in Oyo State.
Transport is one of the most important.
The contractor sheds more light on what makes the terminals unique.
Today, within Ibadan, we have well over 20 million people traveling on an annual basis. But unfortunately, there is no facility of any sort for them. Until the new government of Engineer Seyi Makinde came and said, no, we have to rescue our people. I can put you again in statistics to say that in Ibadan alone, on a daily basis, over 50,000 people are moving in different directions on a daily basis. And all our airports in Nigeria is only 41,000. I repeat, 41,000 people are using all the airports in Nigeria. Yet, We spend so much money on building airports, and we care less where the masses of our people are using.
With 47 motor parks in Ibadan alone, before this innovation, these terminals, apart from the aesthetic appeal, would hopefully be a game changer for greater development of the state. Bukola Oriowo, Channel Television News.
The U.S. government says it's committed to promoting public awareness on the importance of protecting and enforcing intellectual property rights in Nigeria. This was discussed when the U.S. mission, in collaboration with the American Business Council, hosted the second edition of its Intellectual Property Symposium with the theme, Intellectual Property and Youth, Innovating for a Better Future. According to the U.S. Ambassador, Mary Beth Leonard, the protection of intellectual property rights is critical for any economy that wants to foster a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship.
Young people across the globe are under the spotlight for their innovation, creativity and their ingenuity, especially as the world celebrates this year's World Intellectual Property Rights Day. Just as most statistics favor the youth's demography, including Nigeria, the American Business Council of the U.S. mission in Nigeria is hoping to use this forum for young innovators, creators, and entrepreneurs to use intellectual properties rights to achieve their goals, generate income, and create jobs.
Currently we're working with
lawyers, content creators, brand executives, and heads of relevant government agencies have been asked to come speak to young people here and beyond on the possible missing links. The U.S. ambassador leads the charge.
In February 2020, Vice President Osinbajo gave the government support to an interagency push for greater collaboration and legal enforcement of intellectual property infringement. He directed the Attorney General to address the issue of counterfeiting and piracy in Nigeria by bringing together the various enforcement agencies into an interagency collective. We at U.S. Mission Nigeria, along with our local and international partners, are pleased to continue playing a constructive role towards realizing this objective. We still have a way to go in building a strong IPR regime in Nigeria. However, with new Nigerian legislation, along with new tools and energetic partners, I am confident that Nigeria is on the right path for protecting IPR.
Part of the challenges harnessing the power of intellectual property rights has been identified but not limited to poor awareness of extant laws. Where they exist, they are either opaque or inadequate. Identifying types of protections which include trademarks, patents, designs, copyright, and many more. This symposium is a part of the required solution.
If the average young man from the university leaves the university not understanding what a patent is or why he needs to protect his innovation, then we cannot take advantage of the law.
Popular TV host also shares some thoughts on negotiating global opportunities for young Nigerian budding innovators.
Make sure that you have it at the back of your mind that an idea, every great tradition, every great company, every great concept begins with an idea. If you have that idea, you have to protect it intellectually. Otherwise, somebody is going to take it.
Director General of the Nigeria's Copyright Commission couldn't agree any less that since a lot of invention and innovation among the youths are technology-driven, Nigeria needs to ensure the administration of intellectual property is keeping pace with technology.
If we are trying to get the youth to become creative and to become innovative, we must meet them where they are. We must provide safe corridors for them. We must help them express themselves legitimately. And I think we should begin to reflect using her case as a study and see what we need to do better.
The consensus call here is to adopt a domestic intellectual property law that is peculiar to our changing environment here in Nigeria. Olu Phillips, Channel Television News.
Let's take a look at some business news now. Here's Anne Waudu.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Ijoma. Hello and welcome to Business News.
Nigeria has signed a deal with the UK government to attract millions of dollars in foreign investment inflow into the country. And this follows the outcome of the 7th Economic and Development Forum held today in London to promote the trade relations between both countries, which is currently worth £3.2 billion. The deal, which is coming as a support for small and medium-sized enterprises in Nigeria, is expected to generate over 300 million in FDI for Nigeria and directly create 5,000 jobs upon its completion. Both countries have also agreed to start discussions on an enhanced trade partnership, ETP, to strengthen trade and high-value investment between them. Nigeria's stock market maintains its winning streak for the 11th consecutive session within the month. Gains from Seplat, Nigerian Brewers and 26 other gainers pushed the key performance today deeper into positive territory. Laddie Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, April is certainly turning out to be one of the best months so far for investors in the local stock market. And that's because it ended Tuesday's session still in the green with a mid-moderate bargain hunting activities. More than 13 billion naira was added to the equities capitalization of the Nigerian exchange today as it trots further into the 26 trillion naira higher level, which it crossed on Friday. And this comes as the market's main index went up with a mild 0.05% increase. Let's take a look at the drivers behind today's gains from the sectoral perspective. You see that oil and gas counter was the most significant among the 5 sectors of listed equities as its components lifted the counter by 3.35%, which also mitigated the 1.39% loss recorded on the banking counter of the NGX. Meanwhile, volume, value, and deals all ended in the green territory, reflecting investors' positive appetite for equities, which comes amid 27 gainers led by Academy Press against 22 losers led by Multiverse. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
That's business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues with Ijoma.
Thanks a lot, Anne. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has held face-to-face talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Speaking after meeting President Putin, he repeated his justifications for invading Ukraine, but says he hopes for a diplomatic solution. The UN chief described the discussions as frank, but insists he's visiting Moscow as a messenger of peace. For more on this and other international news, here's Simon Pusey with Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called for a ceasefire in Ukraine after talks with Russia's Vladimir Putin in Moscow.
The United Nations is ready to fully mobilize its human and logistical resources to help save lives in Mariupol. My proposal is for a coordinated work of the United Nations, the International Committee of the Red Cross, and Ukraine and Russian Federation forces to enable the safe evacuation of those civilians who want to leave.
Mr. Guterres said he came to Moscow as a messenger of peace to save lives and reduce suffering. But he admitted frank discussions took place and it is clear there are 2 different positions.
На предыдущих этапах украинские переговорщики речи не вели.
It's after he met with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who warned of a real threat of World War III. Meanwhile, videos are emerging of the aftermath of Russian attacks on Ukraine transportation facilities. Here, firefighters tackling a blaze at a rail site in Krasno.
Wir werden über jede solche Anträge auf Exportgenehmigungen.
In other updates, the German government has agreed to send mobile anti-aircraft guns to Ukraine. The German government had previously been accused of delaying arms supplies to Ukraine, in contrast with the US, UK and Ukraine's East European neighbours. Police have released footage from the set of the film Rust, including of the aftermath of the fatal shooting of a cinematographer by the actor Alec Baldwin. In videos released, police and medics can be seen racing to the scene, and body cam footage shows first responders battling to save Helena Hutchins.
We
And what I'm curious about is what came out of that bullet that went through her body and into his shoulder.
The Santa Fe sheriff also released crime scene photos and witness interviews, including with Alec Baldwin. Helena Hutchins was shot by Mr. Baldwin while he rehearsed with what he believed to be a safe gun.
Let me get with my lieutenant and see where we want you to hang out, okay?
Whatever you want to do. Whatever.
Yes, sir. All right, give me just a second.
But police said a decision on whether to file criminal charges will depend on the outcome of future forensic work. Residents across Beijing have joined growing lines of people waiting to be screened for COVID-19 after the Chinese capital overnight ramped up plans for mass testing to 20 million people. Amid comparisons with Shanghai, where more than 1,000 cases were reported in March before widespread curbs were finally imposed on the 26 million people, many in Beijing flocked to supermarkets to stock up on food and supplies, fearing sudden localized lockdowns. Authorities on Tuesday started to close some gyms, theatres and tourist sites the day after Beijing began testing the residents of its most populous district, Chaoyang. North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, has made a defiant speech at a military parade on Monday night, vowing to ramp up the country's nuclear arsenal. The parade, to mark the armed forces' founding anniversary, also displayed banned intercontinental ballistic missiles. The procession also included rows of conventional weapons such as artillery, rocket launchers and prototype tanks, plus tens of thousands of goose-stepping troops. A second Ebola patient has died in the Democratic Republic of Congo days after a fresh outbreak emerged in the city of Mandanka in Equator province. The World Health Organization said the second fatality was a female relative of the first case. On Monday, health authorities said more than 100 people had been identified as possible contacts, and a vaccine was expected to be rolled out this week. At least one migrant has died and 26 others are missing after their dinghy capsized in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Spain's Canary Islands. The Coast Guard rescued 34 people after the vessel capsized around 135 miles off the southern tip of Gran Canaria on Monday. Another 2 vessels carrying around 63 people were found floating in the sea around 40 miles to the south of Gran Canaria. And the Vatican says Pope Francis has cancelled his activities for the day because of a flare-up in knee pain. A statement said his doctors ordered him to rest and that he would not participate in a meeting of an international council of cardinals, which advises him on church matters. Francis would normally be seated during such a meeting, indicating that the latest flare-up was likely to be particularly serious. The 85-year-old has had to curtail events in recent weeks because of the pain in his right knee. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thanks a lot, Simon. Let's take a look at some sports news now. Here's Ayotunde Balogun.
Thank you so much, Ijoma. We'll start off with club football in Europe, where Manchester City FC remain on course to reach a second successive UEFA Champions League final after beating Spanish giants Real Madrid 4-3 in a thrilling semi-final first leg. Kevin De Bruyne's diving header and Gabriel Jesus' calm finish gave City a 2-0 lead inside the opening 11 minutes, but the first half ended 2-1 after Karim Benzema reduced the deficit for the Los Blancos. In the second half, Phil Foden put City ahead with a header to make it 3-1, while Real's Vinicius Jr. scored an individual goal to close the gap. Bernardo Silva blasted in City's fourth before Benzema scored again, this time from the penalty spot. Well, the second leg will be played at the Santiago Bernabeu next week, Wednesday. That's the home of Real Madrid. Meanwhile, Liverpool's hunt for an unprecedented quadruple continues this week when they welcome Villarreal in the UEFA Champions League. It's the third time in 5 seasons that the Reds have reached the last 4 of Europe's elite competition. Villarreal have made a stunning run to the Champions League semi-finals, knocking out Juventus and Bayern Munich in the process. They travel to Anfield on Wednesday night for a first leg of their semi-final clash with a spot in the final up for grabs. That's sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Ijoma, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And one more story on the local scene just before we go. President Muhammadu Buhari today asked all political parties in the country to keep elections and election-related differences aside and join the administration's drive to defeat insecurity in the country. He made the call at the iftar dinner with members of the business community and the leadership of political parties in Abuja today. He describes insecurity as a common enemy bedeviling the country. In his words, without mass popular support to our hard-working armed forces, it'll take us much longer to finish off the successful war we are waging against terrorism, banditry and kidnapping. Our country must be kept safe for progress and prosperity to be entrenched. And the main news again, President Muhammadu Buhari today hosted the Africa Development Bank boss, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, where he applauded the bank on the $1.5 billion Africa Emergency Food Plan. He also met with the governors of Cross River State, as well as his Sokoto State counterpart, Aminu Tambuwal, at the State House, Abuja. Also today, the Federal High Court Abuja authorized the Senate to investigate the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal over alleged assault. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Good night.